Hey, 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 Fit Fam. Welcome to Life Beyond the Finish Line. I'm your host, Orlandina Balan, aka The Fitter Woman. I'm a women's physique pro in the International Federation of Bodybuilding, an educator, a motivator, and the people's holistic lifestyle coach. My guest today is Eve Aronoff-Trivella, U.S. Olympian and World Championship medalist in women's judo. Eve Aronoff-Trivella is a pioneering force in women's judo, overcoming paralysis at age 6 to become a U.S. Olympian and World Championship medalist. Earning her black belt by 15 and joining the All-American Women's Judo Team at 16, she went on to win 28 major titles and compete in the historic 1988 Olympic Games. A student of the legendary Sensei Rusty Kanakogi, Aronoff-Trivella is a Hall of Fame inductee and founder of Eve's Ultimate Body Training, where she continues to inspire others through fitness and judo. Everyone, please welcome Eve.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I thank you. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss a sport that's very underrated in this country.
Yes.
So I thank you for that, and I thank my son-in-law, Arthur Muller, for introducing us.
Thank you, Arthur. We interviewed Arthur on the show, and he's like, you got to meet my mother-in-law. I'm like, oh, who's she? He's like, oh, she was on the first women's Olympic Judo Team. I was like, what? So I was just so excited. So we connected, and like minds attract. When I say like attracts like, this is why I have being positive. You can attract amazing people into your life. So, Eve, tell us the story. Can you take us back to the moment where everything changed? What do you remember about your diagnosis and that time in your life? Because they said you were paralyzed.
Well, I was 6 years old. It started with strep throat, and I took penicillin for it. You know, back then there wasn't amoxicillin, there was just penicillin, and it didn't work. It didn't take care of the strep. Or my mother forgot to give me the rest of it, not quite sure.
Mom was busy. It's okay, Mom.
But anyway, that being said, it turned into rheumatic fever. I was home for a couple of weeks with strep. I went back to school, and, a couple of days later, I noticed my legs were feeling a little funny. They were hurting. I woke up one morning with these, blotches. They call them nodules on my, I believe, my legs and my thighs. But I went to school that day. I came home, I walked through the door, and my legs just collapsed underneath me. So my mother asked, what, are you okay? I said, I don't know. I said, I have these, what looked like black and blue marks to me, to a 6-year-old. They said, and my legs, I'm just tired. That's what I thought. I was tired from having strep and going through that for a couple of weeks. So from that point on, things just got worse. And then I learned, I was only 6 years old, so I wasn't familiar with rheumatic fever, what that was all about. I just knew that all of a sudden I can't walk. And it was extremely, extremely painful. I remember my mother saying that, through the night, me moaning would keep her awake. And I would just take pillows and put them all over my legs and try to get the cool pillows to do something. But it didn't. And then, at that point in time, I was home from school for a very long time. I couldn't walk for a good year or so.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got pretty weak and wasn't doing much, and I didn't get any visitors because a lot of parents were afraid that
they were concerned.
They didn't know what, they heard of rheumatic fever and people knew of it back then, but they didn't know could their child catch it, so I didn't have that. So I watched TV a lot, which I don't like. I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it now. I'm still not a big fan. And I saw a commercial on judo. I saw one guy throwing this other guy a beautiful judo throw, and I just looked at it. I was like, wow, how cool would it be if I could throw somebody across the room like that? I would love to do that.
See?
A little unusual.
Child, but
a little unusual for a 6-year-old girl to want to learn how to throw somebody across the room. But it was beautiful. I saw other martial arts on this commercial. There were, several. This was a chain of dojos, of martial arts schools around the country. and had all of the martial arts, but I just fell in love with the beautiful judo throw. And something that was terrible that happened to me turned into something amazing, because watching that commercial as a 6-year-old little girl was a major life changer for me. It totally changed my life, my future, my just an amazing thing. And finally, through steroid therapy, I got stronger. My legs were getting better. And again, I didn't think twice about anything. My mother didn't say, hey, Eve, why don't you try walking? Why don't you get up? My uncle was a doctor who watched over me a lot. Yeah. He didn't say anything to me either.
About being active,
you want to try to get up. Nobody said anything.
No, they're like, my baby's sick. Think about it. They want to make sure you're okay and that you're not sick. You are sick, but they just want to make sure that they're not overexerting you.
Right.
But I think it's interesting. I have a friend of mine, her son was watching television and he was watching these people acting. He's like, Mom, I want to be an actor. And she said, okay, son, you want to be an actor? All right, then let's do it. And she said, my job is to just help him to achieve that dream and not get in the way. So I think it's interesting because a lot of times parents can see their children asking or saying, I want to do something, and it may look silly, but in the end, it's like, it's not silly because it's that child's vision, that child's dream, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So I found it interesting that, at that age, you just saw this beautiful throw and fell in love with it because that was for you to see. Anybody else, I would look at it and be like, that looks like that hurts.
Yeah.
I don't want any parts of it.
I could understand that.
That would be me.
I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was because I couldn't walk at the time, so it was so opposite of what I was capable of that I just looked. I've always been like that my whole life. If you tell me you can't do this, Eve, you can't do that, I just
watch me.
I totally go against
me.
That.
I think that's what it was. You were like, oh, I can't walk, but this person can throw. I can do that.
I can do that. Yes.
So now, how did your mom respond? Like, what did that look like? Mom, I want to throw people.
Well, like I said, through steroids, I started to get better, and all of a sudden, I just felt like, again, no one told me. I just thought to myself, hey, you know what? My legs feel a little better. I'm supposed to be walking like everybody else. Let me get up. Yeah. Got up. I fell down the first few times. It took me a couple of days and started walking. I was a little weak. I had great triceps, though, because I was dragging myself around for the past year. So I actually...
great arms. She still does. Look. Arms are still good. For those of you on the radio, you can't see it. Yeah. She's got her Olympic ring tattoo, and she's got great triceps and biceps. Her shoulders. She looks great.
Thank you.
Right.
So I had mentioned it to my mother, when I first saw it. And, of course, I couldn't do it at the time because I couldn't even walk. And then I found I can't even tell you how I found this, but I found or maybe heard from another child in school because I was talking about judo, and I learned that there was a local judo school around, actually a local martial arts school that had judo. Okay. And so I kept asking my mother, because she was the one, my father would just look at me, he would get up to work and look at me like,
Seriously?
So,
you're going to just throw people.
They didn't know what it was. So my mother brought me, and I went 1972, October of 1972, I got on the mat for the first time. Doctors said it would be good physical therapy for me to get me stronger and to, just all around strength and help to get me better. And that was my first judo lesson. All I did was learn how to fall the entire time, which it was a good thing that I learned how to fall. One judo throw I learned that day as well. Maybe one judo hold, but basically the whole time was learning how to fall because it's very, very, very important. And it was a good thing I did because the judo instructor there at the time, which this would never happen today, he decided, old school, he decided to tell my mother, there's a competition this Sunday, bring Eve. And they were not beginners. all boys, all little boys. So, you're kind of equal
kinda
at
comparable
that
that
time.
age.
At that age, yes.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody
Yeah.
to think otherwise, because
Yes.
when you get to a certain age, it's
Yeah, it's
not
not the
equal
same.
anymore.
Mm-mm.
But at that age, you're kind of equal. But what was not equal was that I took one lesson, and these boys were a blue and a purple belt, which
Oh
are
my
the
gosh.
highest
Yes.
for juniors. And I want to say both of those matches, I ended up having 2 matches. Both of it, I think, accumulative took about 3 seconds for them to kill me. It was like they just grabbed me and sent me flying. And that's why it was good that I learned how to fall.
Absolutely.
Because I needed it that day.
At that point, that was survival right there. Let me learn how to fall.
I needed it, yes. So that was my first experience. Not a fun one.
No, it's not fun when you're learning how to fall. I mean, especially when you're being thrown.
Oh, yeah.
It was funny because when we were talking about, hey, I said, I really would love to interview you. And you were telling me that story.
Yes.
And I said, wow, there was a lot of symbolism in that. I learned how to fall. And,
absolutely.
And you say, thank God I learned how to fall, because during those matches, you were just being thrown all over the place. So, and if you don't know how to fall, you will get hurt. You will get hurt. I've gotten hurt, not knowing how to fall. So learning how to fall is big. And I think, and I said to you, that translates to life, because we are going to fall. It's inevitable.
Absolutely. That's the only way to be successful.
Is to
by
fall.
falling. Absolutely.
So, that's going to be the theme of our discussion today, fam. It's this idea of learning how to fall. And I thought it was just so apropos with what she does. But before we go there, I just want to let you know that you are tuned in to Life Beyond the Finish Line on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Orlandina Balan, also known as the Fitter Woman, and today we're talking about the art of rising after life's inevitable falls with my guest, Eve Aronoff-Trivella, U.S. Olympian and World Championship medalist in women's judo. So, I was doing research on judo.
I noticed you were doing a lot of research.
I did a lot of research.
I commend you. Yes, great job.
Yes, I had
on
to
that and my career.
Yes, I do homework.
Good job.
I want to know.
Yes,
I like to learn. Judo is a sport developed from jiu-jitsu that emphasizes the use of quick movement and leverage to throw an opponent. It's often referred to as the gentle way. And I was telling her, judging by what I've seen, it looks anything but gentle. But how would you describe judo as the gentle way to someone unfamiliar with it? Like you just said, I was being thrown. It doesn't sound gentle. So what about it is gentle?
Okay, so originally, Professor Jigoro Kano developed judo. So the smaller, he was a very small, fragile, sickly man. So the smaller person can overcome the larger, stronger, heavier person by using their power, weight, balance, movement against them. It's kind of like, it's physics, and it's kind of like when you're holding that door shut and somebody's trying to get through it and they're pushing and pushing, and then all of a sudden you let it go and they go flying.
Yes.
That's judo. And the reason why it's considered gentle is because the perfect judo throw is gentle because you don't have to use all that power and struggle so much. It's all about using your opponent's body, their weight, their strength against them. So, like I said, the perfect judo throw is done with no effort. Wow. Now, it transitioned tremendously through the years. So the gentle way doesn't look so much like the gentle way anymore because it became a competitive sport. Okay. You compete. And that's a whole different aspect of it, a whole different level where, yes, it can get very rough. Even getting one's grip, you know, can hurt just by the way they grip.
They're grabbing your gi.
Yes, the gi itself, you get burns, you get, but you have to remember something. When you enter into these, these competitions, you are trained to be in it. You're not, they don't do like they did with me, giving you one lesson and throwing you into competition.
Yes, that is true.
You're trained for this now. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So you
that
are
old school stuff they
trained.
don't do anymore. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and also by the time you get into high level competition where it really looks rough, you've been doing it for years, training as a competitor, a competitive level, competing. And for me, for someone like me, you would look at a competition or maybe a video of myself and look, and again you would say, well, how is that gentle? But you have to understand, if you're looking at the world championships or the Olympics or any kind of international competition, high level, and you look, yes, it can be rough, but we're seasoned for that.
For that type of challenge.
Exactly. Exactly.
I remember when I was learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as a bodybuilder, everything we do is about standing firm, holding your body. You pretty much are standing your ground is what you do as a bodybuilder. So going into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was a whole new world because my sensei kept saying, you have to flow like water. You're like fire on the mat because once you grab me, I'm just like, okay. But I would get tense up and I would fatigue like that. So my muscles meant nothing. And as you said, just learning how to roll and feel my opponent, being sensitive enough, it was a whole big lesson. It took me a long time to figure it out until one day I figured it out. I jumped up so high and I was just so happy. But it really does allow you to flow better.
And that's the gentle.
That's the gentleness
part of judo.
It.
Judo. Whenever I have new students, I always tell them. I ask if they play chess, whether they play chess or not. And if they do, if they don't, then I tell them to start playing, learn how to play it. So if they don't, I tell them. If they do, I always say to them, the game of chess is like judo. Judo is like a physical chess game. You always have to be ahead of your opponent, and you have to kind of go with the flow. Try to know what they're, you trick them. There's many ways.
You start setting traps for them.
Yes,
you set traps so they think, oh, she must be going left. Nope, I'm going right.
Exactly.
But I have your momentum going in one direction so that I can catch you off guard.
Exactly.
So because of that, I see that judo isn't a sport. It's not just a sport. It is a philosophy, right? How did the discipline and mindset of judo shape how you approach challenges outside of the sport? Because here you're telling me it's like chess. It's like you are using your opponent's momentum. How does that translate to life? How do we use that in that way?
Judo is so good for life. So good. Jigoro Kano, professor, Dr. Jigoro Kano, he wanted judo to be a philosophy. He wanted to teach a certain philosophy on the mat and have you take it off of the mat. And it's very much what the Japanese culture is all about. Self-respect, respect of others, focus, determination. I think just if you take all of those things that the judo teaches you, as we were talking about before, whether you're competing and trying to beat each other in competition or you're on the mat practicing, whatever it is, you bow to each other. It's a humbling sport.
It is.
You bow to get on the mat. You bow to get off the mat. You bow to each other before a match or before practice to each other, and at the end of your practice to your opponent. So with your opponent competing against them, or if it's practice, you bow at the beginning of when you start with them, and then you bow again at the end. You bow as a group. There's a lot of bowing. You get on the mat, you kneel down, you bow to Dr. Jigoro Kano, and you bow to the senseis that are on the mat. You do a kneeling bow because that's more humble than the standing bow. You do that in the beginning of practice and at the end of practice. And you learn how to treat people. So I think that the focus, self-respect, self-control. Self-control is very important. I think these are such important things for life, to be able to handle things in life, to have that self-control, to have that focus. And I think that the most important thing in life for everything is respect.
That's it.
Respect is everything, whether it's for others, for your family, mother, father, siblings, spouse,
human beings,
friend,
just a human being. It's funny. It's the most important rule. It's funny because in my classroom, I only have one rule: respect. And that's what I tell my students. There's only one rule in this class: respect. Because once you have that, everything flows beautifully. You respect yourself. You respect one another. I respect you. You respect me. That's it. There's not a lot of rules to remember.
I like that.
Just one rule: respect, and they understand it. So as you said, this idea of self-control and being able to deal with situations as they come.
Yes.
And you said a lot of bowing. I think people, especially in the West, bowing is seen as submissive. But bowing is not a submissive thing. It's saying I'm humbling. And there's a difference between submission and humbling.
Correct.
I believe that. So why is, in the West, like I said, it seems submissive, but when you put yourself at a position of humility, I feel like it allows you to learn.
Definitely.
And, that concept of shoshin, it's called shoshin.
Yes.
Well, no, that's empty cup. But I notice in a lot of martial arts, there's always that idea of humble. And I remember my sensei having a little block at the corner of the mat when you first came in. Leave all egos off the mat.
I like that.
Leave your ego off the mat and
like
come
that.
in, and you're just willing to learn. And the idea of bowing to your opponent, like after you've gotten creamed, I was telling her that I'm like, you'd be rolling, you're swaying, you just got tossed all over the place, rolled all over the place, and you're smiling, you're like, good roll. And you're so excited because you're just like, but you got your buddy handed to you.
Right.
But you learned.
Yes.
You learned.
Yes.
So
that's important, and you take care of your partners as well.
Yes.
That's another form of respect. Is our training partners. You're supposed to take care of them, because if you don't take care of them and they get hurt, you have one less training partner.
That's right.
Judo is about having partners to practice with and to train with.
And to have, it's a community, so you got to take care of your family.
Definitely.
Right? You got to take care of your family.
Definitely.
Before we move on, because I love this. This interview is going so beautifully.
Thank you.
You're listening to Life Beyond the Finish Line on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. I'm your host, Orlandina Balan, a.k.a. The Fitter Woman. We are mid-stride in our powerful conversation with Olympian Eve Aronoff-Trivella, exploring how to embrace the fall, prepare for it, and most importantly, rise stronger and on the other side. So, you've said before, when we were speaking, success is in the trying. Can you unpack that idea? Success is in the trying, or success is in the failing. Because a lot of people don't want to fail. They feel like, if I fail, I haven't accomplished anything. Why do you say that? Success is in the failure. Success is in the fall.
Well, you have to take chances. If you want to be successful at something, you have to go out there and do it. If you don't do it, to me, if you don't do it, you have something that you want to do, you have something that you want to be successful at or achieve, whatever it may be, at whatever level. If you don't go out and do it, then to me, that's the failure. Yeah. That's it right there. Some people, whether it was through fitness or judo, and maybe I would give them something difficult to do, they would look at me and say, oh, you're setting me up for failure. No, I'm not setting you up for failure. There's no such thing. If you try, there's no such thing.
No, it's not.
You have to take that fall. You have to try. And, when I first started judo, I used to get killed. I mean, I told you what happened. Of course, my first competition, it was inevitable. But for several years, my mother just kept going and taking me. My parents would drive me and to all over New York, upstate. They would drive for hours, and it was the same thing. I would get killed. And then one day, my mother looked at me, and she said, we were walking into the dojo where the competition was. She looked at me, she said, are you going to do something today, or are we going to walk out of here with our tail between our legs like we usually do?
Yes.
And I started judo at 9. I was probably about 11 years old at that point in time. And I thought about it, and I was too young to understand what she meant by our tail between our legs. Yeah. But I knew she was unhappy with the situation.
Correct. She's like,
and so she was tough. Yeah. But you know what? It put a spark into me. And I thought about it as a little girl. I said, what am I doing? Like, I need to try harder. I need to, and all these, the few years that I had where I'm not saying I wasn't trying, but she just gave me that little extra that I needed. And then that day, I didn't come in first place. I came in third, but it was the beginning of the beginning. It was the beginning of winning. And throughout my career, of course, I didn't win everything, but I won most things. Most things I won. And I won those things by getting up, falling and getting up, falling and getting up. Not necessarily getting out there and having everything go perfectly every day, every week, every month, every year. But because I kept getting up and continuing, the majority of my career was so successful, and it's all because of that.
Just because you learned how to get up from the fall.
Yes.
So I know that we're coming towards the end. I want to ask this question. What advice would you give to someone who's currently on the mat and struggling and unsure how to get up again? They've fallen. You know that commercial, I'm falling, I can't get up?
Yes.
So
yes.
How do you get them off? We know we have to fall. I guess, you know what, let me ask this. How do you prepare for the fall and how do you get up? How do you prepare for the fall and how do you get up?
Okay, now are you referring to strictly on the mat?
On the mats, off the mats, in a way that it can translate to both. How do you prepare for the fall? Because on the mats, you prepare by practicing, right? You got to get thrown.
Yes.
So how do you prepare for it in life?
You have to take those falls.
Yeah.
It's the falls that you take, just like on the judo mat. You get on the mat, you don't become a champion the first day you get on the mat. You don't become a champion the second day you get on the mat. You don't become, even if your goals are not to become a champion or be at a high level, but to get to the next level, you have to fall. That's the only way you can get to the next level. So you have to continue to just rise above that and get up and continue. Because that's the success in itself. And it's so exciting when you start to see the change and you start to see things happen. And I'm not saying that you're always going to achieve perfectly what you want.
Correct.
But if you keep getting up, if you don't achieve that, you're going to come damn close to it.
Exactly. You will come close.
Yes.
And I like the way your mom sparked your fire because I feel like she almost said, stop being afraid of your own superpower. Like you had it within you to do it. She kind of let it just cracked it open.
Agreed.
And,
yes.
I think that's
she
what
certainly
happened.
did.
She was like, wait a minute, you holding back. So what are you going to do now?
Yeah, so, that's right. And she, knew what to say.
She knew what to say because you cracked you open. All right, everyone. So with that being said, Eve is coming back, by the way, because she has so much to share. So Eve, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I
appreciate you being here. And so with that, fam, remember, don't be afraid of the fall. Be bigger, be fitter, be stronger, bigger in mind, fitter in body, stronger in spirit, and be good to this wonderful temple called you. I'm Orlandina Balan, aka the Fitter Woman, inviting you to join me next time on Life Beyond the Finish Line, available wherever you stream your favorite podcasts and always right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.